I'm going to try to move through this pretty quick because most of you guys know what an internet connection is. If not, you were born a long time ago. So we shouldn't have to spend a whole lot of time here. So there's all kinds of ways that we can connect to the internet. We got stuff for home. We have stuff for small offices. So DSL has now been rebranded as UVerse. We have wireless WANs. And inside of there, we also have mobile services. The reasons why we need these internet connections and high speed is because now everything runs over it. We talked about phones earlier. Video conferencing today, being able to see people and not be in the same room. Again, business class internet connections are usually provided by service providers. So ISP or service provider is terms that they put into the curriculum. And they may be business DSL leased lines like T1s. So if you've never heard of a T1, you can do some research on what that is. Metro Ethernet is a more involved way to do a copper connection. These things are being phased out by fiber now. Cable, DSL, cellular, satellite, and then I don't know why you'd have dial-up, but they leave it out here because there are still some companies that provide it. Are all common connections for small offices and home users. They're usually a lower cost. Some of them have pretty decent bandwidth, like cable, but the quality of service, the reliability of the service, and the terms of that reliability are not going to be the same. So if anybody has cable and they're at the house, you probably know that sometimes during the day you can get 10 megs, and other times during the day you can get 100, depending on what you're paying for through the cable. And I think in some places you can even get like 1,000 megs down or a gig over cable, but that's going to vary. All of these things are not guaranteed or what we call dedicated bandwidth, so it's going to go up and down. The more people in your neighborhood, the slower those things are going to get. Business internet connections are going to have higher bandwidth, and it's going to be dedicated. So what that means is if I have 1,000 users, let's say, and I know that 1,000 users, if they're going to be all making phone calls all throughout the day, just to like maintain the phone calls, I probably need at least 200 megs. I'm sorry, not 200 megs, at least probably 50 megs of service. So I want to probably put in at least 100 meg connection, and I want to make sure that I have 100 megs because we don't want to have problems with voice calls. Managed services are another thing. So what that means is like companies are actually outsourcing things like VPNs and security and monitoring services to the ISPs. So they're actually involved in some of the management of the actual internal network now. They also have satellite DSLs as options, but those are typically in your smaller businesses, and you don't have to. There's no options for the high-end business cable or fiber connections, or what we call Ethernet WANs. Why is all this happening? Is because of convergence. So 30 years ago, 20 years ago, phones were their own thing. We had a telephone network. We're connected to POTS lines. The POTS lines rang into a what we call a PBX or a phone exchange inside of a business, and then it rang those phones. If we wanted to broadcast video, we had to actually have our own broadcast network, which Southern does within the film department, I believe. So we can actually broadcast our own video feeds. And then the commuter networks, the data, the internet, file sharing, the applications that user used on their computers were their own entity. Well, that's not the case anymore. Phones are now computers. Video is now done from computers. And we tie these things in through telepresence. All three of these things are all on the network. It's one entity, and so they're all converging together. So you can see that before converged networks, everything was separate, and now they're all coming together. So all the rules are changing, and we're in charge of all of these things now. So here's the example of it all converged. And so one of the things that we use to control all this is something called traffic shaping or quality of service. Converged data networks, again, now carry data voice, our actual phone calls, and video all on the same network. So higher bandwidth requirements and better network infrastructure is required. You've already been assigned our packet tracers, so I can skip right through there. Hopefully you've even done some of them. Next up, reliable networks.